we have this issue in industry that most of the messaging we produce to portray a very technical level of information to our clients is generally done by that technical person, and they do not know how to compress that information into a very clear message.
Welcome back to the GASP sessions. My name is Hugh Heffernan, Head of Brand and Strategy at Piquant, and with me today is Ross Griffin, Co-founder and Director of Kosmos. Ross, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Hugh. Appreciate it.
So, Kosmos, you provide digital cost management to the construction sector globally.
Yes.
Big emphasis on sustainability.
Yes.
Offices in Denmark.
Yes.
Limerick.
Yes.
And now Dublin. Things seem to be going pretty well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess from any company outside looking in, it looks like it's going well, right? Until there was a company in the UK that went bankrupt recently, ISG. But outside looking in, everything's going great till it's not. So, but things have been progressing for us, I guess, in relation to the strategy we've put in place, and I think we have brought in some really good people over the last number of years, and we're on an interesting pathway, I would say. But it doesn't come without its challenges at the end of the day. We're working in the construction industry. It's quite a difficult industry to work in, you know?
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming with something new.
Yeah.
If you're coming into a very traditional kind of analog industry and you're trying to drive a new message, a new way of working, there's an awful lot of resistance.
Okay.
But nevertheless, that's why we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
We want to change.
You're ruffling feathers.
We want to stir the shit, Hugh. That's what we want to do, you know?
Yeah. It seems to be working out, though.
Yeah. Step by step, you know. We've developed our 2030 strategy there last year, and so we now have the team on board to see if we can deliver against that. You know all about it. You did all the documentation for us, you know?
Yeah, and like from my eyes, I've always seen from, as long as we've been working together, Kosmos as this, very much as an innovator, stepping outside of the herd. And especially with how you perceive and interact with cost and carbon, how that's managed, in construction. You're looking at it in a very new way that a lot of other players in the field aren't.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about that?
I had to go back a little bit, actually. I was working with my sister. Hi, Heather. I was working with my sister a few years back, and she said something to me that resonated, and I never ever thought about it before. She says, everything is design. And I was going, what the hell does she mean by that? Everything is design. And she said, everything we look at, everything we interact with on a daily basis is design. And I went, wow. But the same could be said for construction. Every single thing we do as humans in our daily lives interacts with the built environment. The homes we live in, the table that we eat off in the morning or breakfast, how we go to work in the morning, whether it's bus, cycle, run, whatever. It's all the built environment. And so from our perspective, then I was thinking, okay, what makes us different then as an industry? We focus heavily on design brand. We focus heavily on clear messaging, because cost and carbon is complex in terms of its granularity. On big projects, you have a hell of a lot of information. How do you get across all of that information to our clients? So from our perspective, everything is design. The message that you get across is design. When people see our brand, it's design. How they interact with us is design, because it gives that feeling of comfort and security when your messaging is clear. So one of the big things for us in Kosmos is our messaging, that clear messaging, as you will know, because you've been developing a lot of our presentations and so on, and we get loads of compliments in our presentations when we go to conferences and stuff about it's completely different approach to a lot of the stuff that people are seeing.
I think a lot of that comes down to the perspective as well. When I'm talking to you, it's not about the aesthetic of a building or the final output of any construction project, but really kind of beyond that. And I think someone said it to me before, one of your team members, maybe it was Archie, maybe it was yourself, and it was about, this is not just the delivery of a building or a series of buildings or an area, but it really spaces where people live their lives. You know what I mean? And when you perceive it in that way, suddenly the priorities are dramatically shifted.
Completely.
And when you think about that you're using design to intervene and to hopefully improve quality of life, whether that's in a financial area, whether that's in whether that's in manufacturing, or whether that's in where people live.
Yeah.
So like I find that's a really interesting way of looking at it. It looks beyond that deliverable.
Yeah. And it being a business, and it being a product that you produce, it's much more than just that. And then we can come back to that initial statement by Heather, which is everything is design, and it is. So what we're trying to do in the industry is really shake up how our industry is delivered so that we're getting better results. Not better results for return on investment for our clients, but better result in terms of outcome for the particular development that we're developing. What do I mean by that? We're trying to implement processes that reduce stress. Extra work, for example, redesign is stressful for the architect, stressful for the engineer, stressful for the client. If we can get a project delivered without the need for redesign, without the need for major value engineering, without the need for major cost reduction, then we'll get a project where everybody will be happy to work on. They'll experience a really collaborative approach to project delivery. And our projects generally in construction, if they're major projects, can be anything from 2 to 5 to 7 years, depending on what they are and how big they are, etc. Imagine working on a project for 5 years that was continuously stressful from the inception to delivery.
Yeah.
Like, how is that affecting us as humans and as team members, and then as society as a large, right?
Yeah.
So we want to be able to change all that by making sure that the decision being taken by clients and investors at the initial stage are the right decisions to be taken. How much money do I need to build this building I want to build? Or what kind of building can I build for this amount of money? Those decisions early affect the entire project lifecycle. And then from that, you come at the project as a process like manufacturing, and you set up processes to deliver that project within. You have to have a plan for your project from start to finish initially to understand what direction you're going in. And every decision you take will be either on that trajectory or it'll be off it. And if it's off it, you need to understand why it's off it. And do you need to alter your plan? What's happening in the industry at the moment is that there's no plan.
Yeah.
All we're doing is starting. And where are we heading? No one knows. So then people are just taking decisions. And what ends up happening is we get this huge challenge, and we all fight fire continuously in our projects. And that's no fun for anybody.
No. Yeah.
So part of our culture in Kosmos, we would just want to have fun. And a video we did years ago, we just want to have fun doing what we like.
Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah, true.
And why get into an industry that when you look at it from the outside in is complicated and stressful? And if you see the likes of the tradespeople and how hard they work, why on earth would you as a young person be looking at that going, that's what I want to do?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you be looking somewhere else going, actually, these guys are, sitting down here working on a laptop all day. That's maybe what I want to do. But we need to be able to attract people into our industry, because we need, as humans, need to continue to build or improve the built environment. And so there's a whole cultural shift around our industry to happen. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do as Kosmos.
Yeah. And like within the design industry, I think kind of capitalizing on joy and kind of understanding that as a really, really valuable asset within your toolbox is, really incredible. Because, it's one thing to be really, really diligent in your workflow in developing a solution for a client, but being able to interject your own sense of joy into something creates surprising and often joyful results as well, where you kind of go, well, if you have to think about it in this way, suddenly you have something that's dramatically different, that might have just, that kind of moves in a way that a typical design solution may not usually do so. So I think being able to bring that into methodology, into the workflow, and into the kind of culture of any studio or business can be really, really fascinating and energizing.
There's similarities between our two businesses, I would say, in terms of design and kind of cost consultancy. When we try to sell our service, clients always look at the cost of the service, not the value created. And so what they try to do is like I had one last week where we were discussing with a client. They said, "Can you reduce your price?" Right? I went, "No.
Yeah.
This is the service. You're buying my intelligence. You're buying my experience, my knowledge base. This is the cost of what that is.
Yeah.
If you want me to reduce it, then you're not buying what you need. You're buying something that's shaped differently. And often I find design is the same. When you're producing a quotation for some design work, it's always, can you do it cheaper? Well, what about the value that you're creating? Why don't we look at value rather than price? And I think that's similarities I picked up on the last kind of 5 years when working with Kosmos, because prior to Kosmos, I wasn't really involved in the design output, design solution of branding or anything like that. And I think I was thinking to myself, Jesus, this is very similar between us. Why are we always looking at price? Why don't we look at value? Let's look at value the whole time.
I think that's a really good, and that is how I guess we try to look at what we do at Piquant, because it's not about delivering a logo or even an advert or a campaign. Really, it's about what are you trying to achieve and what's the best way to do that. The way that's really efficient in terms of, you know, the investment, something that is relevant to the audiences that have been identified and that kind of is in line with your business or your brand strategy. So being able to refocus it on what's the specifics in terms of how we get it done, whether it's design, whether it's media, whether it's web development, that doesn't really matter. These are all just kind of avenues that we take clients down in order to achieve those goals. And in other words, like what I like to talk to clients a lot about is I don't really work for you. I really work for your clients in a way. I'm trying to, that's who I'm really trying to reach. So whether it comes to solutions, it's you know, needs to work for you. But really what I'm thinking about is your end user. What do they know? What do they not know? And on that, we have been working together for, I think, about 18 months at this point.
2 years. Has it been? Okay.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. I heard that somewhere today. I can't remember where though, but
right here.
Right up here.
Yeah. On the GASP podcast.
Over there, I think it was actually.
Yeah. So you came to us with a really strong brand. And what I wanted to ask about was, as a business owner, what are the challenges that you face when trying to build a brand? And not only that, but then take that and keep moving it forward.
I think the biggest challenges the business owners have is that they don't release control to the professionals that they've hired. So for example, if I came to you first day and we sat down, Hugh, and I said, this is exactly what I want and you can't deviate off that. Well, what's the point in hiring you then? The reason us partnering together is that you're bringing a speciality to the table. You need to be able to guide me as a client because I know nothing about what it is that I want. You need to be able to guide me as a client so that you get the best out of me and I get the best out of you. And I think that for me over the years kind of setting up Kosmos, I'm of that nature anyway. I like to hand over control. It's great come up with the ideas, but let someone else run with it. The specialist. We have a saying in Kosmos, do what you're good at, outsource everything else. So we're outsourcing our design and branding, absolutely, because there's no way we can do that internally. Again, we're cost managers at the end of the day. Some of our team are quite skilled in that area when compared to us, but that wouldn't be difficult when our level is zero in terms of design quality. Like it's terrible, some of the output that we have. And I'm one of those, I don't understand that at all, you know. I know what good looks like. That's the level I go to. So I think that initial engagement was that you have to have full trust in the partners that you have and allow them to develop that and try not to, I guess, compress or force the quality of that consultancy service or design based on price. You have to leave it flow, which is why we have an open agreement on a lot of what we do. I need this, Hugh, can you help me with it? Yeah, no problem. We don't even discuss how many hours it's going to take. You know, you guys will bill us because we trust you. This is the kind of relationship that we're setting. And we have it with some of our other consultants as well that are supporting us. Again, we do what we're good at. We outsource everything else.
Yeah. I think because that is really interesting because if I'm being real, I'm not a cost manager. I'm not a quantity surveyor. Yeah. I have no experience in that sector whatsoever.
Good for you.
But working with you, and especially when you're coming to look for creative partners, what is it specifically that you're looking for? Because I am not in any way expertise in that realm. I come from a very different discipline.
But you don't need to be an expert in cost. You need to be an expert in design and messaging. You need to be, so if you're an expert in cost, then I wouldn't be going to you. I'd be going to myself because that's what I do, right? So what we'd be looking for is someone that can drive our message and our brand. And then someone on top of that we can trust and build a partnership over time with. Like I had a conversation a couple of months back internally about the amount we were spending on certain outsourcing. Going, why don't we just do that in house? Who? We would have to hire a person to bring that in house, and then none of us know what we're doing in relation to that service.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about branding now. Don't be worried about that. And our design partners, but none of us have the knowledge or expertise in house to be able to drive that message. And then if you bring someone in, you'd have to manage them, you'd have to understand them, you'd have to onboard them, all of that stuff. Going, why would we do that? You know, do what we're good at, outsource everything else. So for us, I think it's finding partners that understand our business, understand that we're a very transparent, open, disruptive type of consultant and business, but also we're very relaxed in how we do business. You know, there isn't two sides to our culture, one that's internal, one that's external. You very much see exactly who we are and what we're doing by just Googling us. You'll see it on all the video content we do, all the podcast sessions we do. It's the same.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, finding partners and that can help us to grow and develop that messaging and that brand externally.
Like one of my favorite things about being a designer, something I've always really enjoyed, is taking things, is exploring new sectors and exploring new businesses. I've always been, I would describe myself kind of like a magpie. I kind of see something shiny in the distance and I'm like, what the hell is that? And I try to steal it or take it or just try to explore it and try different things. And like that, communicating for, digital quantifying, when we're talking about cost and carbon management, it's quite a technical area and it's quite a learning curve. But that's kind of, for me, the magic of doing good design is being able to just ask for a load of documents and ask for time to discuss and ask really, really dumb questions and then try to contextualize that myself and bring it to my own understanding while still remaining an outsider.
But I would say that there's a value in that because a lot of our clients, a lot of the people we communicate on a weekly basis and we talk about this type of stuff too, aren't cost professionals. They know nothing about the discipline and the service we provide. They really need to come to us with a deep problem and then trust us that we have the expertise to deliver that. So there's a value in having someone like yourself who's coming from a completely different sector, trying to figure out what the hell it is we're doing. Now, how the hell do we communicate that in a way that you understand it? Because if you understand it, our client will understand it. And that's the value of outsourcing to specialists rather than trying to do it yourself in-house. We have a big challenge in the service we provide. A lot of our clients think by hiring a person, I'm going to hire Jim or Mary, I'm going to bring them in and they're going to do what you do. Very simple. The reality is that they can't because they're individuals. We have built a culture and process and a brand over a period of time based on some ideals, but that individual has not. They can't possibly provide the same level of service to you than what we can as a company, because also we have a group of specialists behind us. Then we have a group of partners behind them, like yourselves. Individuals, they don't. And so that it's a real challenge for us in the industry trying to get that point across. It's about partnerships, not trying to do it all yourself at the end of the day.
Like how much of your time is dedicated to educating like clients and potential clients? Because I know that what you do is kind of bucking the trend. You're kind of going from pen and paper to, using data and using kind of automated systems that just make things better. And how much of your time is kind of going, this is what this actually means and this is why it's beneficial to you?
Every day, every project. Every single one of our clients we're having these conversations with. Because a lot of our clients, and I hope you guys are listening out there, a lot of them don't really understand the techniques and technical requirements around what we do. A lot of our clients think all we do is cost estimates. But in order to get to that, you have a whole other system behind that needs to, and I'm not talking about technology, I'm talking about process and information produced by other stakeholders that you need to pull together in order to get that output. Because they think that the service and the task is so simple, then Jim and Mary can do it, right? We just bring them in to do it. But what you're missing is everything else. So the training and education aspect, that messaging, that storytelling is daily with everybody. And some of the guys really struggle with that because we're what it happens to it is becomes kind of circular. It's the same message over and over and over and over again. I've been giving the same message for 10 years now almost. And you need to start over again when it's a new client that is maybe doesn't understand what it is exactly that you do, but knows that they maybe need something. So you start with that messaging, you start small, and then you begin to build on that. But if we were to talk about branding, there's something you mentioned a minute ago about our industry. Our industry is terrible when it comes to branding. Like, you did some research on it. Like, it's terrible because people don't put enough emphasis on it. They don't put enough emphasis on the messaging, because generally the people producing the branding, and I don't mean all your professional designers out there, I mean just people in-house, like us producing our own reports or me producing my own PowerPoint for presentations. It's terrible. Like, it's really bad. And so we have this issue in industry that most of the messaging we produced to portray a very technical level of information to our clients is generally done by that technical person, and they do not know how to compress that information into a very clear message. That is one of the biggest challenges, I would say, within our industry, and one of the reasons that we're really trying to turn that branding design component on its head, not just turning cost and carbon and digital on its head, but also that what it means to have a good quality brand output that is clear messaging, etc., to the industry. We cannot do that in-house. You can't do it in-house. Forget about it.
There's constant misinterpretations or misconceptions about what brand is or what the value that brand brings. And being a sector full of creatives, surprisingly, we're not that great at demonstrating or clarifying what the value that brings. A lot of people kind of bring it down to the aesthetics of a logo or the color scheme or the typographic interventions, but really it kind of goes a little further back and into,
or even more deeper, right?
Much more deeper into, strategy, beliefs, values. What are you setting out to achieve? How do you want to change the world? They're the questions I typically like to ask when we're talking about brand. The logo and all that is just shorthand. It's visual
components,
shorthand.
Right?
When you're building brand, you're building familiarity. Like you're saying, you're telling that story over and over and over again. And it may feel repetitive, but you're defining yourselves, each time you say that with an audience, with a wider audience, and you're making that message more known, and you're building brand equity. I know a lot of the time we talk about brand equity in terms of it's worth this much in terms of million or billion. But really, brand equity is awareness, it's opinion, it's reputation.
How people feel about it when they see it. What do they think when they see Kosmos? We do an awful lot of conferences. We're very open. You know yourself. We're very open in terms of how we approach our industry. Most of our competitors don't do any of that because they're big corporate firms. They can't. They're held back. Whereas we can say what we want, and that's something we need to do more and more of. We need to be confident in the fact that we can be wrong when we say something, and put our hand up and say, actually, do you know what? We were wrong because what you said was correct. That's okay. But in order for us to be able to change our industry, I think we need to be vocal. And that's part of brand recognition. That's brand equity at the end of the day. So when people see us, what I would hope is that when they look at us, they go, geez, those guys, they really talk an honest truth, We're not always right, but at least we're talking it, at least just trying to open up those doors.
It takes a while. It does take a while to get there, and there's a lot of investment, and a lot of it's hard to see because it's built into strategy. It's not necessarily built into deliverables. Like
difficult to measure it.
Yeah. I know, that's always the challenge with brand. But I think that's changing. I think because of new technologies, the idea of being able to measure success, measure impact is becoming more and more important. That's something I'm spending a lot more and more time thinking about and trying to define. And there's different ways of doing it within brand.
So we have analytics. For example, the guys that do Laritz, he does all our videography, right? So he's always asking me, what's the return on investment for you guys when you do the podcast or you do the videos? And I'm going, that's very hard. We can look at the analytics of impressions on LinkedIn and views and comments and, people that have signed up to the weekly or monthly newsletter, whatever the case may be. But it's difficult to gauge on our projects when we discuss with clients of that level of engagement. Have they been engaged passively in the video content, the podcasts, all of our output, our social media output? If they've been engaged passively, there's some kind of subliminal messaging going on there in Kosmos in the back of their head, but we can't measure that. We've really no idea unless a client goes, the reason I contacted you is because I seen this video on your YouTube channel, and it's definitely the problem I'm having. Can you come and help? That has happened 1 or twice in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I think there's a huge value for the business in building that brand equity by doing what we're doing. You know, and it's worth the investment, and I can see that potentially that'll be exponential in the next 10 years, because the brand will already have been built to a certain degree, and all we'll be doing is layering hopefully quality on that over the next 5 to 6 to 10 years.
Yeah, like branding really at its best should be able to provide efficiency and consistency. They're the two things you really want. That's the kind of the secret sauce to building that level of equity. But with communications like that, with measuring the impact of something that might be a bit more esoteric or more less data driven, really comes to, and I think what makes it what can make it really effective in terms of measuring that impact is asking day one, day zero, like, what do we want out of this? That's all, like, rather than I'd like to get to see what this is like, I'd like to try this out. That's perfectly valid as well. But being able to say clearly, these are the metrics I feel will make this successful. Is this realistic? Can we get to that? How do we measure it? If you first ask the questions, what makes this a success?
Well, Hugh, what are you talking about? Are you talking about a construction project? Or are you talking about a brand? Because the questions are identical for a construction project. You need to understand what it is you want to achieve from your project before you start. A brand is just a project. It's just you're building on that strategy you put in place to achieve that goal that you set. And that goal can always be a moving target further and further into the future as you achieve your bite-sized pieces. Construction project's the same. Your target is to achieve time and quality and cost at the end. How do we get there? Oh, who knows? Let's see what happens. Start digging in the ground. No, you need a strategy around it. And then you need to bite-sized pieces of that. And those bite-sized pieces are the days, the weeks, the months, the quarters, the years that you work within that project against that strategy. It has to be the same for brand, does it not?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a lot of, like, people come typically, when people come to a branding agency or creative studio like ourselves, they come with a preconceived notion of maybe what their solution is.
Yeah.
Down in sales, I need a new website, or I need to access additional funding. Maybe I need a new brand. And sometimes they can be on the money. Sometimes they might not be. But typically, irregardless, we'll start just poking them, asking them questions, try to unfurl the reason they came here. So, again, it comes back to not what is it that you're looking from us specifically, but what is it you're trying to achieve through communication, design, and design thinking and brand. And from that, we can build a strategy to achieve that. Whether that involves brand or video, doesn't really matter. These are just tools that we use to achieve a design solution.
A lot of branding for me isn't a switch you turn on and turn off. You can't turn on a branding switch and expect to have these results. If I invest 20,000 euro in a whole brand refresh or whatever, I go boom, full in everything, you name it, website, documents, all of that stuff. My project and client and turnover is just going to increase by 20-30%. No, it's long-term strategy. Branding is. It's something you need to have in play from day one, at least an ideology around it, I would say. You might not, as startups, as smaller companies, you might not have the funding to invest in a design studio like yourselves, but you have to have an idea of what it is you want that to be. That's your strategy. That's what you're chasing as a business owner. Over time, if you're developing towards that, you might have the capital then to invest in, bringing in partners and so on, to help you build upon that. But the idea is always there for you, ideally. And then specialists like yourself just make that happen. To a certain degree, right? All the poking and stuff you talk about. The extraction of information.
Like a lot of the work we have done together isn't about kind of, okay, how do we craft your logo? It's already there. It already looks good. You already have the hoodie. But a lot of the work we have done...
I've already had the hoodie. I'm not replacing the logo.
No way, we're That's done. That's the important thing. Once you got the apparel, you're set. You know what I mean? But a lot of the work we have done has been more strategy-based. Where I've worked with you, your partners, as well as your wider team on defining what exactly is your brand strategy. Asking those questions of what values inform your decision-making, what is your mission? What is your vision?
Yeah.
What is the purpose of Kosmos outside of making money and remaining sustainable in terms of, from a financial point of view as a business? Yeah. And being able to do that with the wider team, I feel is it always it can work on, it can make you communicate outwardly more efficiently, but it can also, I think, internally align teams quite well.
I think maybe there's something to discuss there. It's not just me and you who are having these conversations around brand. You speak to probably a half a dozen of the team in Kosmos around different deliverables, whether it's presentation for X or it's a document for Y, or how do we package up this particular I guess specialization and turn it into a revenue stream if we talk about sustainability. So it's important to have those conversations, I think, with rather than everything filtering to one person, because it becomes diluted. And then if it was all come through me, it'd become a translation, and I would translate it into what I want it to be rather than actually what the requirements are. So I would say, actually, maybe it's something like this rather than actually this is what we're looking for. So by having those conversations, you end up getting a different picture of culture, in which culture feeds brand and brand feeds culture. And it gives a broader view of who the company is. And then that will obviously assist you in all the crazy stuff that you do.
Yeah.
Like a house.
Like a lot of companies begin with, one person. Typically the business owner is the one who's in charge of the social media and outward communications. But as a company grows, like you're growing, it's not really practical. It's not really an ideal situation to keep in that seat. So, and as it gets bigger, more and more people will be part of that conversation. Yeah. So, like you said, the culture will shift. And building a system and building a solid brand strategy in terms of, again, like I'm saying, what's your mission, what's your vision, what's your values, what's your core tone of voice, how do you speak to your audiences? Being able to build that just gives you, and that's not a brand, that's a system that allows you to activate and deliver on what you want your brand to be and how you want to be perceived. Yeah. But being able to build that, it just means that a wider team can do it efficiently and consistently.
I think there's something in that for sure. I was talking to a friend of mine a while back, David from We Group. Hey, Dave. We were discussing this, and he said something to me that really resonated. He says, "Do not be the single point of failure." I said, "Wait, what the hell are you talking about? Who's failing what? Who's doing what? Don't talk to me about that. Single point of failure. If every decision in the organization has to come through you for approval or not, that will become a challenge for you as you grow the business. You have to, as the business owner, be comfortable in the fact of giving away responsibility, giving away control of your business to your trusted team around you. And that for me, I was kind of going, that's really interesting. I went home after that. I sat down. I said, what did I do today, and what do I have to do this week? And how much of this should I not be doing? And I was going, shit, 80% of this I shouldn't be doing. That should all be done by someone else, as in trust the team you have it put in place. So the same thing goes for brand. Building those foundation blocks on it allows you to trust the team to deliver within your brand kind of scope. Without that, almost everything needs to come through you to approve it before it goes anywhere else. And there's some components, obviously, that you would prefer as an owner always to come through you, because you'd like to be part of it. But nevertheless, you need to build those foundation blocks to make sure that it's possible for you to be able to, as your team grows, you don't keep taking on the level of work that the team needs to be managed,
Yeah.
And I think that was a really interesting kind of eye-opener one for me when I started looking at that single point of failure bottleneck.
It's a good way of looking at it, because I had a similar journey, I guess, in my professional creative career. As a junior, when you join a creative team, like a big aspect of that is, where do I fit in? What's my unique point within this team? What can I deliver that other people can't deliver? How do I make myself indispensable to this team, so that you kind of really firmly root into whatever creative studio or team that you're part of? And then as I became more senior in my role, and then took the head of brand role, suddenly then I had to try to shed that uniqueness as quickly as possible. Yeah. Because it becomes that one point of failure, like you said. And that's something that was like, oh no, I need to build up these skills and here and here. And I need everyone to be operating as good as I can operate in any given task or aspect of the business.
There's some interesting point on that, is that traditionally, to stand out within a group, especially when you come in as a younger person, a junior, be a grafter, be a doer. Just do it. Just do stuff. You know, if there's a problem, I'll do it. I'll start that. We'll get that done. I'll get that. That's where you get recognition as a doer. And I think for the younger generation coming out of university and stuff, we're seeing that kind of link between actual producing stuff and sitting around talking about stuff. The people that will progress in organizations are the doers. The people that do stuff, they will progress to the next level. And that's a positive and a negative. Generally, doers are technical. As you just mentioned, what they do is what they love, all of that. And because they're doers, they get recognized and they go, actually, you're doing a great job. Why don't you step up to the next level and manage the other doers?
Yeah.
And then people take promotion that they shouldn't really, because some people should never move away from the technical delivery. And they should understand that about themselves. And when you put a technical person as a manager or as that leader or as that team leader or whatever the terminology is in your organization, if they're not prepared, as you just mentioned, to transition themselves away from the doer and the stuff they potentially like at that point into this, you're always going to have a bottleneck, because they will always come back down to that doing part, because that's what they know best and that's what they love. And up here where they're supposed to be mentoring and leading and stuff is where they struggle and they don't like. So it's important for companies, I think, to understand who in their team is technical, who in their team is technical but capable of being a leader, and making sure then that those leaders are getting the training that they need in order to be able to transition. Because the further you go up along the career ladder, the further you're getting away from what it is that potentially you started the role or the profession in the first place.
Yeah, totally.
And that's a challenge for people, because we're not recognizing it. Most of the worst leaders, managers in organizations are causing the most trouble in those organizations shouldn't be at that level. They should be at the technical level, just doing, because that's what they love. So just fucking be honest about it. Pull them out of that, put them back into the technical level and get someone in there. And all the construction projects we're on where we have problems, technical person is leading. They have no idea how to lead, but they know how to technical. And they'll always revert back to that technical piece. And that's a big challenge. So as a business owner, you need to be comfortable with the fact when you're starting your business that you won't be doing what you potentially love doing. You'll end up moving up along the ladder and you're getting so far away from that. Actually, what you end up doing is just managing people.
Yeah.
And if you don't like managing people, do not start your own business unless you just want to be self-employed. That's it, because you get further and further away from it. Every step you get as the business grows, you get further and further and further away from what it is that you started it for.
Yeah.
You know, which is super interesting.
On the future, I want to ask about where things are headed. There's the working world as we know it is pretty quickly changing. We're all talking about it. We're all broadly aware of how quickly things are changing.
Yeah.
New emerging technologies, access to huge amounts of data, changing how we perceive and value things, as well as obviously the development of AI.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, do you think this is a good thing? Or should I start building my nuclear bunker?
Well, there's two things to that. Nuclear bunker, yes. Okay, we'll come back to that in a minute.
You'd be the perfect person to ask about that.
Yeah. What's the thickness of the walls? Yeah, how much is it going to cost me?
I'd like to be very sustainable.
Yeah, nuclear bunker not so sustainable, has to be done in concrete. But anyway, we'll come back to that in a second. I would say that in our industry, when we look at the construction industry, right now we are second from the bottom in terms of digital transformation. The only industry that's below construction is hunting and agriculture. So farming, basically. Yet our industry produces all of the built environment in the world. It's a global industry. It's monstrous, but yet we're so inefficient. So as populations begin to grow and urbanization and all of that happening, we need to build more quicker. It needs to be a higher level of quality, and it needs to be a higher level of sustainability. We cannot do that with the workforce we have right now. And the workforce at the moment, I must say, in the construction industry is aging. I think the average age in the workforce is something 40 something at the moment. Even in the US, it's terribly bad. We're not bringing in enough to deliver what we need to deliver in the future. So all this talk about housing in Ireland and, 30,000 units, 60,000 units, 90,000 units, it's not possible. We don't have enough people to do it because we need to build all the other stuff as well. So the only way we can improve that and deliver what we need to deliver more sustainably, higher quality, is digital transformation. But we are starting from a very low base. So any little input is going to have a huge impact, right? But artificial intelligence is all well and good, but artificial intelligence needs a data set to work from. And data sets need standardization. And standardization need process. None of that exists in our industry. So AI is all sitting up here going, this is wonderful. But unless we were to train artificial intelligence to deal with all the crap that we need to deal with on a daily basis, until we get to that point, we won't be able to create efficiency using AI. So we need to start with process, standardization, and then we can go through how digitization and analytics into AI and machine learning and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely positive for our industry in terms of what we're doing, because in order to be able to facilitate society, we need to be able to improve our delivery for the outputs that are needed. The challenge with that is, of course, is that as we go more digital, we need more data centers. As we get into AI and bigger data sets, we need more data centers. And if you're reading the paper at all in Ireland at the moment, no more data centers. One of our guys, Roger, hi Roger, one of the guys in Kosmos has been looking into this. We need 5 to 10 times more data centers than we have now to deal with the coming AI requirements. 5 to 10 more, globally, 5 to 10 more. And then we need to refurbish every single data center that has been built to date because of its inefficiencies, moving from the cooling of the servers, etc. And so how are we going to do that? While we also need to build all the housing we need globally, while it's all this huge kind of ecosystem that's all connected, that all needs to operate at the same time in order for it to be able to facilitate kind of human lifestyle. It's crazy, kind of that industry.
So
but I totally forgot the question around bunkers. Yeah.
Bunkers or no?
Bunkers or no? That was it. Yeah. So I think AI and digitization is absolutely key for us in the future. And every single student coming out of university, or anybody in school, anybody that's interested in digitization, get into the construction industry. It's the one that is going to explode over the next 2 decades. And it's not about the carpenter or the electrician anymore. We're going to need the tradesmen, but then it's going to be robotics and automation. And imagine delivering your project sitting in the west coast of Clare, and your projects in the Middle East, and you're driving machines from your armchair, or whatever you're doing. All of that is going to happen. It's inevitability of it all.
Yeah, like digitization it's a really common challenge that a lot of our clients face when they come to us, particularly when you think of how communication works.
Yeah.
Particularly post-COVID.
Yeah.
When suddenly your digital presence became vital to the survival of any business.
Yeah.
How do you present yourselves online? How do you communicate online? But not only that, how do you adapt your existing workflows so that you're not just doubling your work, you're not creating new work? There's lots of communication tools that we will try to deliver to clients that will bridge that gap. I know with working with you as well, working on presentations as well as documents, as well as the strategy, all these things feed into each other. It's not, when we talk about different projects that we've worked on together, it's easy to see them in isolation. You have your one email thread here, and you've your one email thread here, but there's a dialogue between all of them. We're slowly building that story. We're slowly finding the normal way in which this brand is being expressed across different contexts, so that whether you're looking at it at a event environment, on social media, in video like this, or on any form of digital presentation, motion graphics, still, static, that there is a through line, there's consistency, so that when people see that, they not only see the brand, but they become aware, and they see they become aware of the value your brand brings, and understand that. So what I really want out of, I guess, long-term partnerships that like we're building at the moment is that we craft your story, and then we give you the tools to deliver that story, so that over time, as soon as you see just that little logo there, no further context needed. Nope. They understand the values that you're trying to bring to the sector.
That emotional connection becomes into it, right? And that's where you want to get to. You want someone to see the brand and become emotionally connected to it, because they understand it. They understand the values behind it, or the qualities that relate to it, or inequalities that relate. It can be a positive and negative emotion, right, to a brand. Some of the biggest brands in the world, you have a negative emotion to,
Yes.
I certainly have a negative emotion to. And we've talked about that a lot. I don't know if we can mention it, but nevertheless.
Let's call them out.
Yeah, let's call them out. Start that. No, don't start that out. But that's important. That's what you're trying to build on it. And I'd say it doesn't happen naturally. It's not something that will fall into place. It's something that you need to plan and deliver upon, which is why partnerships like this are so important. Specialists, do what you're good at, outsource everything else. We need to tag that. That's a tag. We're going to change the name of this session to do what you're good at, outsource everything else.
Out the door.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think with that,
I know. I have one more comment.
Go
There's something on that. The future of what of the brand and design and all that component might look like. What's interesting about it is that we actually don't know what the future is going to hold, but what we do know is that it's not going to be the same as it is today.
No.
Change is inevitable.
Yeah.
So in order for you to be relevant in the future, you also need to change and always have the mindset of dynamicism, I would say. How do we change? And same for the brand. Not the brand itself, but in terms of
how it's expressed.
The components that underline all that brand. That needs to be refreshed. You need to relook at it to see, because you grow as an organization, as a company, as a person, and over the years that changes. And so does people's perception of what brand is, and societal change affects that connection. So you also need to have that change happening within your brand. Again, not the logo, perhaps, and that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, like the way we communicate to any audiences, any people, to each other and our families and our friends, it's constantly changing. Yeah. So therefore, the way brands operate kind of need to change in step with that.
Exactly.
Like 15 years ago, the idea of a brand animating or moving was kind of restrained to TV appearances.
Yeah.
It wasn't given too much thought. Now the idea of, and this is something we work with people, again, because you have that core brand, because you have that brand strategy, that can inform audio branding. That can inform, again, motion design, like we've worked on together, both 2D, 3D, kind of all the different elements.
It's multifunctional, multi-operational.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because, on really fast-moving, attention-seeking platforms like LinkedIn, any social media platforms, even just the web generally as it's moving towards, we need to have a brand that can move in ways others can't. Yeah. And that's the challenge, I guess, moving forward. Ross, thanks so much for coming to GASP.
No bother.
As always, it's a pleasure talking to you. Listeners and watchers, thanks for being part of the GASP sessions. And make sure you give us a like on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. If you have any guests you'd like us to invite in the podcast, just let us know on the GASP or Piquant social media channels. So with that, slán and chat soon.